Welcome to GoPowerCat.com's Power Chat, sponsored by Blue Mark Energy. Well, he joined the Kansas State football program in its heyday and never redshirted. From 2000 to 2003, Nick Leckey was a mainstay on that Kansas State offensive line and playing a significant role in the Wildcats winning that 2003 Big 12 championship. After 6 seasons in the NFL, he retired, very happily may I add, and ended up in medical sales. Here is the first half of a very interesting Power Chat with former Kansas State offensive lineman Nick Leckey. Welcome to another edition of the Power Chat, brought to you by Blue Mark Energy. Today we're joined by a legend. He's truly a legend, Nick Leckey. You like being called a legend?
I like being called a living legend.
As opposed to the opposite. Like, we'd have him on after. By the way, in doing research, I found an obituary for a guy named Nick Leckey. I'd like you to know it wasn't you.
Okay, good to know. Thanks for verifying that. I
was not
appreciate
you.
that. I appreciate
like, that's sad. He was on his way. He was on his way.
Such a good guy.
Nick popped into Manhattan kind of on a random day. It's not a game day. What's it like going to games as just a dude? Well, you're not really a dude, but you're just watching.
It's fun. I remember coming when I was playing here at K-State. I remember coming in on the buses, and after eating a crappy breakfast or a crappy lunch, and you're in your suit and tie, and you got your headphones on, and you're listening to your Discman with your
not a Walkman.
CDs, not a Walkman, but a Discman. I'm not ancient. I'm just kind of old. And I remember like getting off the bus and walking into the Veneer complex, and just this barrage of smells, of sounds, of people, of activity, and I could tell, and I knew, I was like, people are out there drinking and having a good time, and I have to stay focused to play a football game, and then after that, I can go enjoy all that good stuff. So it was fun coming in, and now I get to experience all that stuff that I never did, and I'm making up for lost time every time I come back.
But you're still doing some of that pregame stuff for K-State HD.
Yeah.
That looks fun.
Yeah, I love that. I love working with Brian Smoller.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime he texts me and was like, hey, I heard you're going to be in town, I'm like, yes. Like, would I rather be tailgating? Mm-hmm. Yes, but I so much enjoy doing that and working with Brian that it's like, all right, it's a no-brainer. I'll go put on the business up top. Right, put the suit and tie and leave like the shorts on and stuff like that down below.
That's what I do when I do my TV show.
Nice.
It's like, one day we wore shorts and they had the camera back just a little bit too far so you could see our legs under the table. It was not good. And it's my legs, so it's really not good.
It's unprofessional.
It's
unprofessional. You wear pants.
Because it wasn't clear that I was even wearing shorts at the time, so it's kind of sketchy. Well, let's go back to Grapevine, Texas. Now, you grew up there.
Yeah.
What was life like in Grapevine?
It's a suburb of Dallas.
Yeah.
And, growing up in the 80s, it was a little bit country. There were still some patches. Sure. And then
it's crazy to think about.
It really is now that I go back. But now, and then as I got closer to high school, it was all just urban sprawl. And Grapevine was cool because my freshman and junior year, we had built a new high school, and we won state. My freshman and junior year in 4A, and 5A was the biggest at the time. And you don't realize Texas football. You don't realize what a cult, what a bona fide religion.
Right.
It is down there until you get out. And then I was talking to my buddies at K-State, and I'm like, how you had football twice in school, right? And they're like, what are you talking about? I go, you didn't have football in school? They go, no, we had weightlifting. I'm like, Well, we had block scheduling, and you have 4 classes a day, and your first and fifth period class, so first class each day, was football. And on my transcript, it says football. And
That's
it's
crazy.
like, yeah, it's a full-on, like, we did special teams practice, we watched film. This is the late 90s. And as I graduated in 2000. So yeah, so we would do 2
Who
days.
thinks that's a good idea for education?
You don't even realize it though until you get out, right? That it's like, that's absurd. Like to have that much football, and it's like, but I mean, that's just the way it is, and the way it was at Grapevine.
But what fortune to grow up in Grapevine.
Yeah,
football was good.
It was. No, it was cool, and it was cool too. I mean, when you go back, you know, you have a legacy that you don't think about when you're 18 years old, but you can always go back. I mean, I think we just had our 20-year reunion for the state championship 1998 team, and you just think about how cool that was back then. I mean, at the time, I thought nothing of it. A buddy of mine was in town for the state championship game my junior year, and I was the starting guard and starting nose guard 3-tech. And I stayed up till like 1 or 2 in the morning playing Zelda Ocarina of Time. And my buddy came in and was like, "Hey, dude, don't you want to go to bed?" I go, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, it's like 1:30." And he's like, "You got to wake up at 6 and go up to Texas A." I'm like, "Okay, I guess I will." But yeah, you just...
Zelda.
Yeah, Zelda. Well, it's Ocarina of Time. It's one of the greatest video games of all time.
Okay.
Take my word for it.
I will. I will, because I almost got a divorce over Zelda.
No kidding.
I was having an affair with Zelda, apparently, and finally we just had to sell everything because it was literally turned into an addiction.
Oh, yeah. Was that on 8-bit, on NES, Nintendo?
Yep. Just had to get rid of it all.
See, I couldn't. See, actually, too, I had the Blockbuster copy because it was sold out like at Target, and Blockbuster came out a couple days earlier. So I had the Blockbuster game, and this is like the game where you could save on. So I had to pay $100 to buy that game because I got so far deep into it. So that was, it was my Zelda addiction.
That's good. That's good. And then you go through the recruiting process. What was that like?
Maddening. Mm-hmm. You know, back then there's no texting, so it was all calling a house phone. It was coaches coming by, getting you out of class for a little bit, handwritten letters. Sometimes I get a handwritten note, and I would always lick my finger and rub the marker. You know, they can print that off, and if I could lick my finger and rub the marker, make it smudge, I'm like, okay, these guys are legit, and this isn't just like a computer generated printout. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And you just get... Me personally, I didn't like all that attention, or I was like kind of like, okay, I'm going to set up my recruiting trips in January because, you know, we're going to go on a deep run in playoffs like we did the year before. So, you know, junior year we won state, and then my senior year we lost first round of playoffs. We got upset, and that's when Greg Peterson was the wide receiver coach. He's my recruiter. He was like, hey, you know, you guys. He came in that Monday after the loss. He was like, hey, you know, you guys just lost. You don't have any recruiting trips. Why don't you come up to K-State this weekend? I go, sure, why not? And well, one of the best decisions I ever made.
It's funny how that works out.
It is. It remember,
really is.
It truly is. I remember Greg Peterson being there wearing the K-State stuff, and I remember my stepdad was an Aggie. He went to Texas A&M, so I was rooting in '98 for A&M to beat K-State in the Big 12 championship game. Now, obviously, it hurts my heart, right? It hurts my heart right now.
Okay.
So that we know. And so I remember thinking, man, there's no way in hell I'm going to K-State, dude. Like, I've got recruiting trips to LSU, to Texas, to Duke, and somewhere else, I forget. I think I was even open, maybe Colorado.
And clearly, based on that high school academic record, Duke was in your plans.
It was. Actually, I actually scored high enough on my SATs as a sophomore or junior to qualify for Duke. So, yeah, so I didn't have to take it again after junior year.
To that football section.
I know, right? Yeah. Exactly. I was using that time for study hall, I guess.
But, I mean, those are pretty good schools. What was it about Kansas State?
You know, for me, it was just, for one, I was sick of the recruiting process.
Right.
I wanted to be done with it. But then I think that the cool thing about K-State is that it's in the middle of the Flint Hills. Right? So it's like, it reminded me of Hill Country, Austin, to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. You know, you got the water, Tuttle Creek, Pillsbury Crossing, which I found out later on in my college career. And it's a place where I know, knowing myself, I think I would have got caught up in a bigger city.
Right.
Like, you would have never heard about me if I'd have went to Austin or LSU or any of these other places. And I like the idea of coming to Manhattan and focusing on school and football, and that's it. And no other distractions besides Aggieville. And I knew myself enough as an 18-year-old human being to be like, you know what, this would be the best thing for you. It felt like family. You could be in on the ground floor of Google, so to speak, and you can be a part of a tradition instead of, or building a tradition instead of being just another cog in a machine that's been football dominant forever.
You know, I've been doing this a long time, and I would always tell people, you got to remember what a special time you are. You're at Kansas State when it's happening. You're not picking up the tradition like with the second or third grade coach. You're on the ground. You know, when the Bear Bryant is there, the Joe Paterno is starting out, all of those things. Think of all the great coaches, root back the tradition to the coach that started all, the Big Bang coach. You've got that right, and you know it's happening because it was so incredible. But those were really amazing times, K-State. Late 90s. What year did you graduate high school?
2000.
2000.
So Cotton Bowl in the snow was my first year at K-State.
Okay.
And yeah, it was, I mean, and you knew back then, like, I think 1998 season, it put K-State on the national map.
Absolutely.
Mike B being in the Heisman candidate, going undefeated, you know, terrible loss in the Jones Dome in St. Louis, or the TWA Dome, whatever it's called. And then, you know, doing the crappy Alamo Bowl thing. But that put it on the map. And to me, it's like, as a high schooler, like, things I looked at, are you winning and are you Nike? You know, those are the two things in my shallow.
You're not about the three-stripe life?
No, I'm not about three-stripe life at all, too. No, I do not respect Adidas. I think it's from the movie The Program, right? Where it's like, I can't play in Adidas, I got to wear Nikes. And I think that I just took that to heart. And still to this day, I don't wear not Nikes. I don't have one pair of Adidas in my closet at all, or Under Armour for that matter. I'm a Nike man.
So no kangaroos?
No kangaroos.
No Russell Athletic?
Yeah, none of that.
Okay,
none
that's
of that
fair
at
enough.
all.
I'm kind of a Nike guy too.
Yeah, I like that.
That was just an amazing time you came in, 2000. You know, you're right. It happened. You know, K-State made a run at a national title, but could they extend that? And sure enough, in the early 2000s, they did. But you played right away.
Yeah, I started as a true freshman. My first start was Oklahoma.
Fun.
Yeah, I know, right? College game day is here in Manhattan, and that was my first start. And first play at left guard, I jumped off sides. The nose guard said hut, and we did a double count, and I flinched. And so I'm like, all right, cool. That's how we're going to do it. But I think there was that Texas background helped me with you know, digesting the playbook, hustling, work effort, and my size. Like, I was 6'3", 290 coming out of high school. So I think that size alone and having that background of football, that really helped me to play early on.
Any regrets you didn't redshirt?
Yeah, I do. I really do have regrets because I started 3 games and then I got hurt. I got my ankle, high ankle sprain, and I was out for like 4 to 6 weeks. So then I got put on the back burner. So I think back in I wouldn't be able to use the redshirt rule, but I think I look about where I ended my senior year, and I got moved to center, and I was a runner-up for the Remington Award. I always think about, what would you have done with another year at K-State, right? So it would have been, you know, a third-year captain. Probably would have won some awards because, you know, your name was on the list. K-State didn't publicize people besides Sproulsy, his Heisman after 03 and 04. And yeah, I do. I think about being in Manhattan for another year. You know, so a lot of things, but then I could have got injured too. Right. So there's, you know, good and bad.
Well, under the new rules, you would have just played a little bit, been redshirted, and came back. That's a sweet rule.
Yeah, it is a really cool rule.
It's good for the
like
teams,
that.
good for the players.
It is. It really is.
They'll probably
really
get rid of
is.
it because it works. That's how things work. Back to high school. You were a high school state wrestling champion in Texas?
Yeah, I was.
What the hell is that about?
So me and my buddies, we grew up watching UFC 1 through 8 on VHS, right? So that was when like Hoist Gracie, Ken Shamrock, Chemo, all these guys were these MMA, and it was where jiu-jitsu wasn't like the main thing. It was like You had like Tank Abbott, who was like a street fighter from Huntington Beach. You know, you had Ken Shamrock, who was like a tough guy from the East Coast or something like that, trained at Lions Den. So we grew up watching, and we would wrestle each other, my buddies and I, and we would do like chokeholds, right?
That's not good in high school wrestling.
Yeah, it's not. So I committed to K-State in December, and that next semester, it was January, and first day back from school, Steve Wills, our wrestling coach, who's also our AP physics teacher, he was like, hey, Nick, our heavyweight is about to fail. We need you to come out and, you know, just earn a couple points, and it's a great way to stay in shape for K-State. And I'm like, okay, cool. You know, I've never wrestled before. It looks like a lot of fun.
You had never wrestled before and you won a state championship?
Yeah, no, I never have. But that's, I never. Well, but I told you, I grew up with my buddies and we were doing the MMA. You know, we would wrestle like with each other, but it'd be like, you know, put them in like a chokehold, arm bars, leg locks, and stuff like that. So I had the gist of it. And my first match was, I got a technical foul. Is that what it is, right? You get a whatever. I got a foul because the guy was like, I threw him to the ground and he was on his like stomach, like kind of like crawling away.
Like trying to get away from
I guess, I don't know. And I remember like jumping on him and doing like a forearm, like pounce into his neck. And the ref was like, you can't do that. Like you just can't do that. Like there's no whatever. But yeah, no, I had this mentality of not caring and then also caring a lot, that it was like okay, I don't want to lose.
Right,
and it was the first time I'd ever been away from a non-team setting. Because O-line, you know, there's 5 of us on the O-line, and we all got to stick together. One die, we all die. And it was kind of a cool feeling to be like, okay, no one else is going to hold me back. No one else is going to be my demise. Like everything I have is in front of me. I control my own destiny. And it was like every match, I'm like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to pin this guy. And I was 20-0, you know, with 18 pins. And one of those was, I was sick. It was like my Michael Jordan flu game, right? Where I was delirious. I couldn't think right. And I had to beat the guy on points. I remember one time he had me, he was on top of me and his arm's right here. And I bit his arm. Because I was like, I'm out of it. But yeah, that was a fun experience. I wish I would have wrestled more. I really do.
But that translates a lot to the offensive line.
Yes.
I love that, you know, everyone talks about cross athletes. If I see a lineman, O or D, that's a wrestler, there's so much leverage involved there and just body mechanics that you don't gain on the football field from football coaching, but it applies once you learn it.
It really does. I mean, if you look at wrestling, it's so to life in the trenches because it's footwork, it's hand placement, it's shifting body weight, right? And it's moving your opponent in a way that they don't want to be moved, or using their own leverage against them. So you learn all these cool intricacies because O-line, D-line matchups, I mean, that's a big wrestling thing without the holds. And sometimes you do hold, you know, you have to, it's part of the game. And I think, if anything, that discipline. I think my first week or two, my tongue was hanging out the side of my mouth during wrestling practice, because it was the best shape you could ever be in, is wrestling. You know, because you're long matches, and I couldn't even tell you how long the periods were. We had 3 of them, and they're 3 or 4 minutes, and it was like you're just beat up after that, just exhausted after that.
Did you enjoy the singlet?
I did. I wore the shorts for as long as I could, and then I took them off. But yeah, it was funny because they had this. I remember in the state tournament in Austin, they had this like big wrestling mat, right? And I would go back there and I'd be listening to I always like chill before stuff. Like I would listen to jazz or like a chill. I listen to like
what a renaissance man.
Yeah, I like big, obviously Miles Davis and Coltrane. Those are the CDs I was listening to. I love jazz because jazz, I don't think as an O-lineman, you can't be too hyped up before games because you'll jump off sides and you got to be just chill. And that was the same thing I took for wrestling. So guys would be back there with their headphones on, like shooting and, you know, going on the knees and sweating back there. And I'm like on the back mat, like taking a nap, right? But before the thing. So it was cool. It was my way of psyching out my opponent. It was really cool.
Old Coltrane.
Yeah, like old Coltrane.
Love it, man.
Yeah. Miles Davis in a silent way is one of my favorite Miles Davis albums.
I can't wrap my mind around how the hell you won a state championship with no experience. Was the heavyweight division that bad in Texas?
I don't think so. No.
Can you imagine how humiliating it was for a guy who's done it his whole life, that this football player just picked it up and whooped his butt.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that until afterwards, but I think about like, because most of these guys, you're right, they grow up, like my 8-year-old son is in wrestling right now. Ugh. But it's not serious. Like it's just like after school, he does it, it's for a good activity, twice a week in the wintertime. And I thought about like, dude, these guys, like I remember Paul Rousey, he was a sophomore from Highland Park, and he was like the guy. Like I beat him in regional final in overtime. And I remember like my coach was like, dude, that guy was really good, and he's supposed to be the next big thing. And it was like, I remember after that, I'm like, oh, he's been doing this for a while? Mm-hmm. Like he didn't just start in January? Like, oh wow, that's weird. But yeah, you feel for him. But then that's what I loved about it though too, is like, you don't care about tradition or history or anything like that. It's like, he didn't want it today. That's it. And that was my mentality. It was like, I don't want to lose.
I love wrestling. I think wrestling's a really cool sport. I wish K-State had it.
I do.
K-State has a wrestling tradition. People don't know that. Back in the day, they had wrestling, and there's guys that should be probably in the Hall of Fame, the K-State Hall of Fame, that were wrestlers. And a lot of Kansas high school wrestlers end up at Oklahoma State, Iowa, at the great ones. I wish they had it. What drove me from working in the newspaper business was covering a kids wrestling tournament. Mm-hmm. Good stories, but the sound at a kids wrestling tournament will haunt you forever.
Oh, I bet.
The smells and the sounds and the parents. The parents.
Wrestling parents are up there with football parents.
Yeah.
With youth, little league, full contact, tackle football.
Right.
Yeah, that's what drives me with my kids' sports too, is the parents, and like the parents who 8-year-old is going to be the next pro athlete, and I'm like, pump the brakes.
Well, growing up in Texas, when did you start playing tackle?
7th grade.
Okay, that's
my mom did not let me play any earlier than that, and I think that's appropriate. And I was behind for like 2 days, and I wasn't big. I did not get big, like physically, until my junior year of high school. Like my junior year, I was 275, and then like sophomore year, I was like a skinny 6 foot 250, a lean, like a skinny fat. I wasn't like big by any means, or anything like that.
I didn't fill out till college.
Did you?
Yeah. I went to my freshman year 6'1", 175.
No kidding.
I came home 6'3", 225.
Oh, damn.
For Christmas.
Wow.
That was the fall semester.
Jeez. Something in the water, huh?
Well, it wasn't water. It was beer and pizza.
I figured as much.
Beer and pizza. Before 2003, of course, the Big 12 championship, what sticks out to you about K-State football? When you go through the 01 season, that was a dip. A little frightening dip, and they came out of it.
Weird getting rid of that crappy AstroTurf.
Oh God, I forgot about that stuff. That was horrible.
We hated that stuff because it's like, you make it through a practice, you make it through a game and unscathed, and you've fallen a couple times or whatever, and then you hit the shower, and it just like if you had skinned up your elbows or your knees.
It was like paper cuts.
It's like 1,000 little paper cuts, and you put the water on it, and you're like, oh my God, did you just put acid on me?
Yeah.
And it was just so gnarly that you're like, just good riddance. So that kind of signaled like a new era for us. Like it felt like we were big time. Like it didn't feel like we were little brother anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think having that confidence, subconscious level is like, okay, we've made it. Right, and then now it's time to act like that. Now it's time to play like that. Right, play with that confidence of being a team that's in the future with field turf. And
it's amazing when you look back at the stadium and the evolution. All of those different steps represented that.
Yeah,
because the press box you were playing with was the replacement of the original press box, which was a trailer basically.
Yeah. Smaller than my high schools.
Yeah. And it rained inside. Wow. And then now we have the full press box now. It's just kind of every step of the way, a new step's coming. It's just kind of fun to watch. It's like the evolution of K-State football just is growing with that stadium.
And it is too. And I forgot who it was, but someone told me early in my collegiate career, is like, you're always playing for the people next to you or the people after you. And it's the same thing with the NFL, right? Where guys in the 80s played for the guys in the 90s and so forth. And it's like you're always playing for future players, future generations of Wildcats. And I thought it was cool. And I grasped the concept junior, senior year of, okay, it's a movie called Above the Rim. And they had this game where you try and see how high you can touch on the backboard. And I kind of took that as a challenge personally to be like, okay, how high can we go to touch the backboard to get to say, look, here's the high water mark. And then for future generations of Wildcat athletes, can you get higher than this mark?
Right.
You know, we're going to show you that we can do it, and this can be done here at K-State, given our lackluster talent or 2 or 3 star recruiting bullshit that you see. And it's just like, man, that's what I loved about that. It's setting that precedent for all Wildcats to come. Be like, man, you want your name to live on forever here, or do you want to be just a footnote in the history of K-State football? And that 02 and 03 seasons were awesome for that reason alone. It was like, hey, here's how high we can go higher.
And 03 started with such incredible promise. You guys were loaded that season. And then the injuries hit and the skid happens. Does it feel like it's just coming all derailed?
You know, it didn't, because you could look at L and you could say, you know, not having L, that Darren's duo really affected us on offense. I mean, if you look at those scores, I mean, defense did their part, right? I think we went to Texas and, you know, barely lost. And on the road, you know, Vince Young was young, you know, just getting his start. And, you know, those games were winnable. And Okie State, you know, Marshall. It's a tough skid. But, you know, it's like when the Big 12 North and South Conference, it was fortunate for us that those were 2 South schools, right? That we didn't lose to 2 North schools like we did in 02, the year before, because we lost to Colorado and a Southern school, Texas. So, yeah. And then, just one of those things that worked out well for us. But we never lost faith, never lost confidence. I mean, football... And people don't realize this. And there's a certain level of momentum from week to week, but then you have to bring that momentum. You know, you have to create that. And I mean, you're looking at a bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds. Every week's a new week.
Yeah.
You know, every week is a new week. You know, and that's what led us to Oklahoma. And it's like, man, we can do this. We got this.
I have never seen a team that I felt was as mentally and physically prepared for a game as you guys were for the Big 12 championship against Oklahoma. And nobody gave you a chance.
Oh yeah, nobody did. But that's the cool thing is, you know, it's us against the world type stuff, and that's easy fodder. That's easy to motivate a team. But I think the coolest thing about that game was our game plan. And if you look at what happened the week before, we played Missouri, and I think L had a shoulder injury. He had a torn labrum or something like that. So we knew going into the Missouri game is senior day, my last game at K-State, and it was like, okay, we're gonna have to run the ball. Like, we're going to have to, you know, Travis Wilson's going to be our lead fullback, and Sproles is going to be our running back, and we're going to pound the rock, because we got to protect L's shoulder. So you take that, you get a week off for Thanksgiving, then we go to the Big 12 championship game. We come in Monday after that Thanksgiving, and our O-line coach Bob Sand was like, listen, here's our game plan. We're just going to run up the middle.
Right.
And he put on film of North Texas running the ball successfully up the middle, but then I guess coaches didn't watch the game plan, you know, playing OU's defense, and they're like, man, they're susceptible. There's a soft underbelly there that can be exploited. And that's what we do. And then once we started doing that, it really opened up the whole playbook, and it opened up all those dangerous screens, and opened up play action passing and all the deep threats. And it was just, yeah. I mean, shoot, we even screwed up warm-ups. Like, we had to restart warm-ups because L was fumbling it or going the wrong way or something like that, and there was no panic. Like, you do that in a certain game, like before a game, you mess up warm-ups, and it's like, oh, crap, we're about to get slaughtered. And no, there was zero hesitation, zero doubt what we're going to do that
Oklahoma takes that 7-0 lead. I'm in the press box. Everyone's like, well, here we go. You know, here it goes. And it did have a feeling that you guys stayed calm, and then you scored and started making plays. And it was a collection of big play after big play. I think if you ask people probably that Darren Sproles' screen is up there among the greatest plays of all time, might stick out to people.
No, I could see that. Absolutely.
But you scrambling for the fumble.
Yeah.
Nobody has crawled better than that since Andy Dufresne broke out of prison.
through 50 yards of the sewer system, right? Exactly.
That mad scramble. What is going through Nick Leckey's mind as he's scrambling for that loose ball?
So it reminds me to my sophomore year, we played at USC, and I got a touchdown, but I didn't come up with the ball. So it was Josh Scobie fumbled into the end zone, and I got the credit for it, but I didn't come up with the ball to celebrate. In my mind, I'm like thinking, okay, you better get this ball. Because I think that's all about being active as an offensive lineman. Like, you see a lot of guys will shut it down. I always tracked running backs and quarterbacks and receivers just in case they needed a block, if I could catch them, or in case a fumble happened. And on that one, I remember distinctly like falling on it and swiping and missing and thinking, oh no, I got to get this, and just reaching out and grabbing it. And yeah, I mean, it was a critical junction too. It was the second quarter and we were driving, and it was, but you don't think about the gravity of the situation or how crucial it is. You just think, I want that ball back. You know, that's it. It's a simple sport.
It's like high school wrestling all over again.
Basically.
Gotta beat that guy to the ball.
Exactly.
And, you know, the championship, that celebration just... it's hard to explain how cool that was, because it wasn't just you won a Big 12 title. It was like so monumental for the program, how that happened.
First conference championship ever. And it was we never talked about that during the week. I didn't, honestly, to be honest with you, I didn't know it was the first one until after the game, because, I mean, 2003, we didn't have this age of media and Twitter and social media and internet where everything was like publicized, right? Where it was like, hey, these guys, and I still to this day don't watch ESPN. Like, I don't watch any sports news at all. Like, I actually subscribe to The Economist, and I'm more interested in what's going on with, you know, GDP and all that stuff than anything else. And yeah, it was just cool to me to be a part of the first conference championship in school history. You know, that's why I went to K-State, was to be on that ground floor to establish the base for the rest of the future generations. Not
to bum out this situation, but then you go to the bowl game, you're down in, and it all hits the fan.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. We were out of the loop. We had a team meeting so if the game, I don't even know when the game was, so let's say the game was Saturday. We had a team meeting on Thursday night, and it was like, you know, coach was like, you know, so one of us did something pretty bad. And I was like, what happened? And my roommate Dylan was like, hey dude, who's not here? And I'm like, who? He's L. I go, what happened? He goes, so we had no clue, and then we go to the pep rally and the game day walkthrough on the field, and we're on the field of Sun Devil Stadium where we're playing the next day, and it was like, you know, K-State quarterback accused of rape, and I was like, and it's
amazing you guys were even...
We didn't even know, because I remember all these cell phones started going off at the rally, right, at the basketball arena, and I was like, what the heck? And then we get out there and we see, and we're like, wow. And I've never in my life, in all my football career, been in a locker room more dead before a game than us versus Ohio State. Like, it was dead. Like, it was no emotion whatsoever. Whereas, I mean, usually Josh Buell, get people hyped up, you know, get everyone going, and that locker room was dead. Like, and it was just one of those things where if you had all the confidence in the world versus OU versus Ohio State, you're like, golly, this is just like, you're distracted. All right,
those
you weren't
dudes
present.
Were big. Ohio State, was big.
Yeah, and it was, and we
yet
still,
it wasn't a blowout.
No, we almost beat them. We lost by 8.
Yeah,
and after a first half where we couldn't get together, in the second half we figured it out. It's like, okay, this is how we wanted to come out and play. And so, it was unfortunate. And that's what I think of when I think of the Big 12 championship. I think of that, but then I think of how we should have beat Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl, too. You know, but, you know, you can't change the past.
And then you left Kansas State, and we will get into that as we continue the Power Chat with Nick Leckey right after this break.